Well, here's the old Willie's Jeep, or at least part of it. There's some of it over there and there. Here's an engine stand that I picked up at a thrift shop. And that's my foot. None of that matters though, because this week we're working on the steering column for the 76 Ford van. Let's get into it. So before I install this steering column in the van, I would like to take it apart and clean everything up, clean up the switches, and I need to take the lock cylinder out because my ignition is in the dash, so I don't need that. This is for an 85 Ford van. My van's a 76, so it has the key in the dash. And years ago when I bought the van, the shift collar broke. I couldn't find another shift collar, so I ended up using another steering column like this, and it's all wore out when I got it, and it's garbage. This turn signal switch doesn't return, and so we're just gonna clean this one up, swap them out. First thing I did was took off this horn button cover thing. It has 2 Phillips screws that go in the back of the steering wheel. Then you unhook the wires, and then you have a 15/16 nut, hold the steering wheel on, and then it's also pressed on there. So I'm going to use this harmonic balancer puller to pull the wheel. They also have steering wheel pullers, but this is what I have, and that's what I'm going to use. So I'm going to go ahead and get the wheel off, and then we'll start digging into the rest of it. So once you get your steering wheel off, this is what you're looking at. These 2 things right here are contacts for your horn. They touch these 2 grooves on the steering wheel. This little plastic thing here turns off your turn signals. Clicks this little plastic piece here, and there's one down here. And this up here is for your ignition lock. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that because I don't need that in my van. And then I'm going to go ahead and clean this up as best as I can. Let's see if how far I can take it apart. It's been a while since I've done it, so figure it out as I go. Okay, it took me a minute to figure it out, but take the lock cylinder out, which also, this is your steering wheel lock, so it doesn't turn. You turn the key this way, and there's a little button down in here. You push in, and then it'll pull out. So I'm going to do that next. Well, here's the lock cylinder. Right there's that little button. I just used a piece of wire, poked in the hole. Worked fine. You got to get to it from kind of a weird angle. That's why I went with the wire. Next, I want to clean up the turn signal switch. I'm having trouble getting the lever to unscrew. So I'm going to keep messing with that. I don't want to break it, but I want to clean it up as best as I can. And I think that's the next piece that has to come off. So I'm going to work on that for a little bit. Well, I was able to get the lever off. This one's pretty rough and bent. I think the one on the other steering column, that's the only good thing left, so I might steal that off of that one. I already pulled 3 screws out right here. Now the turn signal switch can come out. When that comes out, it pulls this wire with it. In order to get that out, you got to take this plastic piece off. Do that from this bottom side. Looks like this one, you take these screws out. Some of them have a clip that it snaps into. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this cover off, and then hopefully we can get the turn signal switch out. Got that cover off. Start pulling the turn signal switch out. Have to pull this light bulb out. That's the light bulb that lights up the shift indicator, I guess. And to get that out, it goes into a little hole way back in there. I don't know if you can see it, but it just pulls out of there. So that's easy. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull out the switch and the wires, and then we'll tear into it a little farther. See what we find next. Glad I took the time to take this all apart and clean it up, because parts like this is really gritty. You can feel this, just the grit in there. These little buttons. It's gonna make it last a lot longer. It's a flashlight. So the next thing I gotta do is there's two 7/16 bolts, one right here and there. Took the nuts off of those. And then there, if you can see in there, there's a little snap ring. Got a pair of snap ring pliers I'll use to remove that. If you don't have snap ring pliers, I've done it many times with just screwdrivers. So it's possible. So pop that off, and then I believe this piece will come off. It's been a long time since I've done this. And then it's almost all torn apart. So I'll do that now. So I actually had better luck with a screwdriver taking this off than with the snap ring pliers. But it's off, and this is the bearing that's behind it. That comes out. And I think this piece comes off. Oops. I do that. Give me 2 hands, I think. Alright, 2 hands. Let's see what we're looking at. Oh, forgot to unhook something. Imagine that. Alright, well, that piece is off. Okay. I need to unhook the rod that goes from the lock cylinder to the ignition switch. So I'm gonna have to figure that out real quick. Alright, so I ended up having to take off the ignition switch. Now this will come off. Well, we got some crunchies falling out anyways. Dried up grease. Got one of these doodads. Looks like just a plastic washer. And then I figure out how the shifter comes unhooked. Actually, I think I can leave the shifter there. I can clean everything up real good and grease it. And the main thing I wanted to get to was the switches and the bearing. So it was a little crunchy. I don't know how much farther I want to tear it down. It did sound like the bearing down at this end was a little gritty too. Maybe I can just pop this off and lube it up. I don't know. I'll deal with that later. But I think I'm gonna call it a night. Got it pretty well tore down. Tomorrow I'll clean it up real good. I'll start putting it back together. I won't have to put on the steering wheel because I'm not going to use that one. And a lot of these pieces I won't reuse, like the lock cylinder and the ignition switch. So until then, see you tomorrow or something. Alrighty, we got this thing all cleaned up, put back together, minus a few pieces I can't use or don't need. Can't use this cover here because the original steering column was small and that won't fit. And then I'm not going to use the factory steering wheel or any of this because I don't need it. Main thing I wanted to clean it up for was to get these contacts all cleaned up, and then I put a liberal amount of grease on there. And that should keep it working pretty good for a while. Now it's time to go out, pull the other one out of the van, swap this one in. So the reason why I'm putting this steering column in the van is because the one that's in the van is pretty bad shape. And the original one broke on me. I couldn't find one of these collars, shift collars, back when it broke, so I bought the only steering column I could find. It's just like this one. Tore the other old original steering column apart. I have some of the pieces. Maybe one day I'll get it back together. I gotta find the rest of the pieces. Now we'll go put it in the van. Alright, we're in the van. Here's some of the reasons why I'm gonna change it. One, there's no shift indicator. Two, this thing is super sloppy. Even harder to know what gear you're in. And I think the bearing in this one's pretty bad shape too. So now we're gonna swap this one out, put the other one in. If I had any advice to give when you're doing this, set the parking brake or chalk the wheels, because you're messing with the shifter and sometimes you'll bump it out at park and you don't want to run over yourself, because that's no fun. Alright, let's start tearing this apart. Okay, I got everything under the hood unhooked. So now we're gonna pull the column out, take the steering wheel off first, and then we can swap the other one in. While I got the steering wheel off, I'm gonna clean it up real good because it's getting kind of nasty. So apparently this steering column won't fit. These bolt holes are in a different spot than the previous steering columns. So what I think I'm going to do is put the old steering column back in and just take all of these pieces up here and transfer to the other column. Hopefully that'll work. Right? It'll work. Sure. Let's do it. Well, it's back together. That was a lot of fun. It wasted about an hour and a half. But I think everything's in working condition. We'll go ahead and finish putting it in, and we'll check it and call it good enough. Put this junk back in here. Well, that quickly went from this should be an easy one to what the heck just happened? But it's done. I hope everything works. About to go try it out. And as always, thanks for hanging out at Van Gogh Garage in Little Carburetor Spring, Colorado. Bye. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Forgot to put the indicator on there. Just drove around the block. It was way better. It was definitely worth how much it sucked to do it. But it's done.